President Biden was in New York yesterday campaigning for Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul. To assess the contents of his speech ahead of the midterms, we're happy to have on Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany. Congressman Tom Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to join you on this Friday, Steve.
Congressman, President Biden yesterday contrasted his plan for the economy with Republicans, saying that the Republicans' plan will further boost inflation. How will the Republicans' plan differ from the Democrats?
You know, the message that I've been delivering to voters, Steve, is I think there's three big things that we can do. And it's not just three, but there's three I always mention. Number one, let's pass a balanced budget. A group I belong to, the Republican Study Committee, we're the only ones that put on paper this session a balanced budget that would get to balance in 7 years. Second of all, let's reward work rather than welfare. And the third thing, let's get back to energy independence, something clearly President Biden does not want to do, but is also very obvious to the American people needs to be done if we're going to get the economy back on track and wring inflation out of our economy.
Congressman, I'm going to ask you about energy in just a moment, but first I want you to react to something President Biden said in that same speech yesterday, where he singled out Wisconsin along with a few other states. I'd like to get your reaction to this.
The previous president made a string of broken promises in places like Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, where promised investments in jobs and manufacturing never materialized, but layoffs and shuttered factories did materialize.
Congressman, your reaction?
We had the strongest economy we'd had in a long time, especially for working class people and lower income people during the previous administration. President Biden is once again just spreading misinformation, just spewing stuff, hoping the American people aren't paying attention. They're going to be sorely disappointed come November 8th, because the American people know what's gone on. They know what's happened since January 20th of 2021 with the record inflation that's driven up the cost of living for all Americans, and the American people see through this.
Congressman, you have expressed concern about President Biden asking the Saudis to postpone cutting back oil production. What has you most concerned, and why do you think we've not heard more from the media in terms of questioning the motive?
Yeah, well, we actually heard a little bit from the Inside the Beltway media this week. But for those not familiar, Steve, 2 weeks ago, I called for an investigation, and I sent a letter to Speaker Pelosi. Let's have a committee review why the administration was asking the Saudis to put off their announcement of production cuts for a month, which would have been after the election. Have not heard from Speaker Pelosi yet. Sent a follow-up letter now in the last 24 hours saying there's additional information coming out, including from the New York Times, that shows the Biden administration was attempting to get the Saudis to up oil production way back last spring. And as I've described it, I believe the Biden administration was doing this as an in-kind contribution. And it's obvious what the Biden administration believes in. They care about their own political hides rather than American lives when it comes to this whole issue of energy. Kick the decision off until after the election, when they can continue to put their thumb on reduced production of American energy.
Congressman, back to foreign policy. What will your biggest priorities be when it comes to dealing with China, the CCP, in the next Congress?
So first of all, we should end the one China policy. There is no such thing as one China, and we need to be firm with the Communist Party, especially with President Xi, who has, it appears, consolidated his power. We have to be very firm with them that you need to leave Taiwan alone, and Taiwan is a separate country. The other thing that we should do, and there's bipartisan support for this, is to end most favored nation status, where we just give the administration the ability to continue to do that. We need to bring that back and have a vote every year in Congress whether China should have most favored nation status. They need to live up to the goal that most of us have across the world, and that is for countries to treat each other with respect. China is clearly not doing that with Taiwan and other countries. Let's Let's bring back most favored nation status on an annual basis, and hopefully that'll be incentive for the communist Chinese to become better actors rather than stealing our intellectual property, threatening their neighbors, and enslaving their ethnic minorities in Western China.
Congressman Tom Tiffany, thank you so much.
It's always good to be with you, Steve.